All right, well, welcome back to the Heiden and Level Up Leadership Podcast. It's an honor today to be in the building with the one and only Pastor Dr. Eric Mason, lead pastor of Epiphany Fellowship in the Philadelphia area in Las Vegas for this time. A 30-year gap between your last 40, my fault. And he's back. Come on, everybody. I wish we had a little clap sound or something because, you're a big deal in my life. Your ministry has served me well. Your writing, your book, Manhood Restored, helped me grow as a man, as a husband, as a father. Your works within the church planting realm has been very life-giving and helpful, especially somebody who kind of in a way serves in an urban practitioner context. And so, just big honor to you, Pastor, and thank you so much for taking some time today to help us level up in our leadership here on the podcast.
Glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Yeah. So good. One thing I like to ask all of our guests, and I don't even like to use the word guest because I feel like family at the table. What's one way that you're leveling up in your leadership in this current season?
Yeah, I think, one of my mentors, thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my mentors, he said, your 20s, is your development years, your 30s, your mastery years, your 40s and 50s are your dividend years. And, one of the things about leveling up that he would, kind of talk to us about is, when you get 40, between 40 and 60 is the years you get to, if you maximize them, you get to benefit from the 20 years prior to that.
That's great.
He said the challenge with that is when you think you have a sense of mastery of something, and you tend to not grow anymore.
Wow.
And so he said it's the time where you can bear the most fruit, but become the most morally laxed.
Wow.
And basically just striving and diligence, you can lack in that season. So we're leveling up in this season, trying to fight that bug. Because you do tend to see it's not as, it's not that things aren't hard now, but it just doesn't feel the same because it's like I was looking at I can't remember what I was looking at. Maybe it was a YouTube video, and one of the players on I think it was the Hornets team was playing, and he was acting like this and that, and Michael. I think he said something smart to Michael. Michael's like 40 something.
Yeah, that wasn't gonna go down.
Yeah, and Michael's like, he said, "All right, y'all." He said, "I'm gonna pick the worst players on the squad, and y'all play me and them." He said they torched him so bad. I believe it. He torched him so bad, and he's like, "This is like not even prime, dude. This is fadeaway, knees buckled, and he's killing us." And so. I think, I want to be in a season where I'm, maximizing that season of investment as well.
Right.
Because that's the other piece of this season where where you begin as a leader to just be invested, kind of like Paul sitting on the back porch, in Acts 28, teaching, on his porch, teaching in his last days. And so I think that it becomes more of an investment season because you're not necessarily building. But the challenge with this season that we're in is post 2020. If you're not in the twilight of your ministry, all of us got to be builders. Right. So it's been a struggle a bit to think I would be getting some more dividend stuff than normal, than I am now. But all of us took some type of loss. I don't care how big or small your church is. Everybody took a level of a loss, whether it's can't find people that you really want to love and shepherd and care for, leaders that you develop you don't know what happened to, or people are coming back slowly, or people only come to church average once a month, and that's considered committed now.
Right.
No, I watch them consistently, I give, and I come once a month. That's like committed nowadays, And so, however, that there has never, and I know a lot of pastors, there has never been in the history of church in this country, I think, the level of adjustment that all of us had to make. I don't know. And so I think when you're talking about leveling up, if I could sum it up, it's like one of my other mentors said, just being in a constant state of learning. I feel like I'm fighting to learn a lot even more during this time and make those adjustments. And the good thing about it, I've got a lot of young people around me, so it's cool.
Right.
Because they help you keep learning.
Yeah. We say this all the time on this podcast. We define the acronym LEAD, LEAD. The L stands for learner. Leaders are learners. Mm-hmm. And I love how, when I say, hey, Dr. Mace, how are you leveling up in your leadership? You're saying, keep on learning.
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. That speaks to the concept of growth too. And you're getting ready to close out the 40s, right?
Yeah. Before we move on from that,
though, go ahead.
Learning is important, but it has to be strategic.
Yep, talk about it.
Because it's a lot to learn, but reading has to be strategic. You can't just be reading. I know guys, if you're a pastor or you're leading or something, you have to balance, because there's some leaders that they tend heavy on the academic side or the intellectual side. Then you have leaders that are heavy on the pragmatic side. And one of the problems with either one is if you tend to be on the academic and scholarly side, you don't get nothing done.
Word.
Because you just know what to think, and then on the pragmatic side, you tend towards what works and what gets something done without vetting it biblically. So I think learning has to have context to where you're saying, am I strategically learning in a way that helps my spiritual formation, helps my family development, but then also helps what I'm doing in relation to moving the organization or organism forward. Yeah.
I'm just going to put you on the spot right now. Would you give us an example of something that you found to be helpful in the reading category that kind of brings in a little bit of both?
Yes, I'm going through a book right now called Culture Shift by, I think it's Robert Lewis and Wayne Cordero.
Nice.
I peaked at it about almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
But really, some books don't hit you until it hits different when you're in it.
Yep.
And so I think I'm just dealing with the idea of culture shifting. I mean, of course, the apostles went through culture shifting with the Romans roads being developed during their particular time and them being able to figure out innovative ways to get the gospel out. And so I think now that's really a big thing for me, culture shift. And so, probably 5 years ago, most pastors thought the guys that were on YouTube and, whether you want to say TBN or Word Network, all those different things. Oh, that's the TV guy. I never, video in my stuff, man. People got to come. And like now, you do that if you want to, if you're not going to have some online something.
Yeah.
And so, but the issue is, people, there has to be, it can't just be, we got to do this because this works. How do we build a biblical framework for it? And so I think that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that what I'm doing, even if it's not explicitly said in the Bible, I can principally draw it from Scripture from an applicational standpoint. And so I think that's very important, because you don't want to just do what works. You want to do what works and honor God at the same time.
I love that.
So, so culture shift has been. I'm going through it now, so I can I'm putting my oxygen mask on first. I'm going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm going through this other book personally for me. Out of the darkness. And so, but dealing with that book and dealing with because I don't think any of us, like, nobody knows what they're doing right now. Like, if you say you do, you're a liar.
Yeah.
I think we know fundamentally what to do.
Right.
Like you're a basketball player, right? If you play a team that you've never seen their footage and you know to play, you still have the fundamentals.
Right.
And then you can feel them out and maybe make some adjustments. Like I'm more of in a boxing, so that's the same thing.
Yep.
You feel it. I think we know the fundamentals. The fundamentals is our soteriology, our commitment to the gospel, by faith alone, through grace alone, through Christ alone. Our commitment to the scriptures. Our commitment to biblical ecclesiology, commitment to sanctification, commitment to understand the the nature of the nuclear family. All those different things. Those are fundamentals. So the times isn't going to change what those things mean.
Correct.
It can't. But it does have to be properly communicated and conveyed in a way that doesn't lose its content, but it's the vintage, timeless truth that we do, the faith once delivered up for the saints, right? So that means we're going to have a vintage faith. However, we have to have a contemporary engagement technique and mechanisms. And so culture shift is helping me to think through, how do you navigate all the culture shifts we're going through? I mean, culture shifts with the way people think about church, the way people think about community and specifically, online community, How do we deal with people about online community? Do we scratch all the local community and just do online community? Can somebody have an online church and it be online only and no communal only? Like, again,
Right.
and I'm not making a statement or judgment on anybody about it. I'm just saying we're all trying to figure out the best way to do the Great Commission without violating the ways in which the Bible may give us some mechanisms that can't be changed in order to cause the Great Commission to happen. Yeah.
That was a fire little piece right there. Just that whole little segment right there got me thinking on how to engage the culture with a word you just used, strategically. And I think if you're going to level up in your leadership, you got to be strategic with it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to be as effective if you just pick a book and just start reading it. But I think you said something really great. Learning is strategic.
Absolutely.
Who you're learning from and what you're doing with what you're learning, I think is so dope. You know, you used the phrase mentor 2 different times. You talked about, just I'm learning right now from mentors in my life, which I'm sure that's strategic on your part as well. I know one of your mentors and even maybe I say even spiritual father in the faith is Dr. Tony Evans.
Yep, he is. Yep.
Even from his life, how have you seen kind of strategic level up leadership from your guys' relationship that you're trying to even apply in this season?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had kind of the intensified season of our relationship more so when I was there.
Sure.
So it was kind of groundsy. Now I can call him anytime and that kind of thing, and we can connect and I can go down there and talk, whatever. But I think he gave me a good foundation from modeling and being around him. I mean, we had time together, been over his house and spent time with him and his family years ago, and and working in the ministry, and then the meeting part of this meeting and mentoring time. But I think for me, one of the things that's been the best about that modeling, Paul says, the things that you learn and seen and heard of me, practice these things, and God of peace shall be with you. Right. I think from my relation, him spiritual fathering me, I think I got modeled biblical commitment to the fundamentals of biblical engagement. Like for me,
wow,
that's what it always got to be connected to the book. And but then, his philosophy of kingdom.
Yep.
So
that's right.
and his definition of kingdom is it's God's comprehensive rule over all creation. And so and then that's where our model from Epiphany came from, kind of showing off the glory of Christ in every area of life. Right. So that comes out of that kingdom philosophy, and it comes for us out of Titus 2, as well. Titus 2, 11 through 13.
Nice.
But from that, and then so there was that balance of that, just a biblical and kingdom philosophy of every area of life. So how does the assumption that I learned from him is that God has something to say about everything.
Right.
And so and our job as disciples in being conformed to the image of Christ, Romans 8:29, is to reflect that in every area of life. So that affected my way he's a busy man, but he always had time for his kids. The way he engaged them, the way he raised them, the way he invested in them. So I look up to the fact all his kids are saved.
Yeah.
Being in ministry is,
and powerhouses kind of in their own realm.
It's icing on the cake. To be that they are in ministry. If my kids go into vocational ministry, that's fine. I'll be glad if they're just godly Christians, whether they go into the market, the arts, whatever. Just as long as they honor God in whatever they do. That's to me, that's a huge win for any parent. His relationship with his late wife, Lois Evans, and just how they modeled a godly marriage, and how he structured the church and had sectors. He had structure, fellowship, administration, discipleship, all the different ways, all the way outreach, and how he structured church and giving church structure, biblical eldership. Before I even read Strauch, years before I read Strauch, I've learned biblical eldership from him. Wow. Plurality with the first among equals, all that stuff. So it was really, it was good for me. It was a home church, not just a ministry training ground.
Right.
And so, because a lot of people want to be trained, but they don't want a home church, which that's different.
Talk about it.
Because I think that, if you look at, it's so biblical, right? So Paul got his calling the same day he got saved, which is funny, nice. Right? Yeah. And so in Acts 9, he got his calling the same day he got saved.
Talk about a level up.
He started preaching, but he stopped. If you notice, we don't hear from Paul until like Acts 13.
Mm-hmm.
But where is he? He's in a home church, just around leaders, and they're just praying and spending time with God.
Right.
If Jesus talked to me, visually I saw him talk or heard his voice talking to me, it's nothing you're going to tell me about. I'm the home church, because I'm the, I don't heard from Jesus.
Yeah.
But he was willing to get in a local church, be under and equal with other leaders.
So good.
And then when they prayed, the Spirit of God said, set aside Paul and Barnabas for ministry, and they laid hands on him. So technically, Antioch was his sending church. And if Paul can have a home church and be under and among leaders, man, how much more can many of us do the same thing, man? So,
love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's why it's weird to me, like the whole thought leader culture, is just, not that it's anything wrong with it. Please don't hear me. But I do think that so many, I will say this, because I'm old school, unauthorized voices speaking on things from a pastoral heaviness standpoint that kind of concerns me a little bit, which almost decentralizes, where is God's authority kind of housed in? If the church is God's means, like somebody say, I'm the church. The Bible never says the individual is the church. It's the gathered people of God that's the church. So we are the body of Christ. You're not the body of Christ. You're a part of the body.
It's us.
So our hand is not the body. So,
That's good.
And so I do think that there's a hyper individualism that concerns me today, that I do think that there needs to be good Christians waving the aroma of their Christian faith online. Right. But I do think that there has to be a carefulness of, you're a thought leader, you're out there doing stuff, and you may even get speaking engagements, maybe, I don't know. But you don't have a home church.
Right.
And so you want to talk to people that you don't spend time kind of loving. So,
yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of my story that actually began at Epiphany Fellowship. I was there as a college student, 2000, I want to say it was 2010.
Yeah.
And I got invited to go to this conference. I was at Epiph, Pastor Matt Chandler, Pastor E. Mace. You guys were kind of tag team in sermons. And that was the first time I heard about the concept of church planting. Mm-hmm. And so I approached Pastor Matt after the session. I just said, I think that's my calling, is to plant a church in the city of Las Vegas. And he said, man, that's great. Who's your home church? And I just remember looking at him like, I don't even got a home church. And that's when he kind of like gave me that pat on my back, like, young man, you gotta be a part of a church and then be sent out of a church and allow that church to confirm the calling on your life before you just step out and do things backwards.
Yeah, I had people, when we when I sent a call to plant 22 years ago, and that's 23 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, was it 23? 24? Oh,
was it 2000? What was it?
It was 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So, I keep forgetting it's 2023.
Yep.
So,
it's a Jordan year.
Yeah, that's right. He turned 60 this year. Ain't that crazy?
That's
hope
crazy.
They put something crazy out though.
I hope so.
We'll talk about it later.
Yep,
anyway.
I like that. Let's just level up your shoe talk. That's a different podcast sometime.
What you asked me though, I forgot. My bad.
Well, I was just talking about the value of a home church.
Oh yeah.
You were going to speak in on that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I people are like, you should just plant. Like, you got the call, just go plant. And I was like, that's not it. I don't even, like, that's weird to me. Like, I don't know if I thought through it as much, but something about it felt weird. And so I, even in my longer bio, I put in it, I didn't plant until I was confirmed upon me by the land on the hands of the elders. Like, it was about Timothy, Paul, he preached the gospel, him and Barnabas preached the gospel from Acts 13 together to Acts 14. They go back to Jerusalem, Acts 15. They split. Timothy got saved in Acts 14 between verses 19 and probably 25 when they were there. He goes back to instruct the churches, and when he goes back in Acts 16 with Silas, they bring Timothy up to him, and he was like, "It's a young guy. He's raised by his grandmother and his mother. He knows the Old Testament verbatim. His dad's a Greek, his mom's a Hebrew." But Shorty's nice with the scriptures.
Wow.
He trusted Jesus. He's nice. Paul
I love that.
Paul goes up and starts chopping it up with dude. Like, Wow, he got a good
got
view
some
of
juice.
Tanakh.
Yeah.
And now he sees Christ. Oh, he coming with me.
Wow.
You know, but if you go into 1st, 2nd Timothy, you'll hear that those elders laid hands on him and sent him.
Wow.
And so
even Timothy was sent.
Yeah, so he was there from Acts 14. I mean, whatever time. You know, we don't know all the time, but 14 to 16, whatever amount of time that was.
Right.
And Paul just snatched him up, and he became an apostolic delegate and one of the fathers of the church. You know, so I think that you can't, you know, that's, even if you look at 1 Peter 5,
right,
it tells the elders, you know, shepherd the flock among you, boom, 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 boom. And then right after that, it says, you younger men, humble yourselves before your elders.
Yep.
And then it talks about humility.
Yep.
And when you don't do it, it's prideful.
Wow.
Ain't that crazy? That's the context of 1 Peter 5. So, you know.
Powerful.
So, but that also means, and the other side of it, submit yourself to healthy elders. That's the other side of it, because we got some fools out here, you know. So we're not going to act like it's everybody's fault because they're not submitting. People have had some bad experiences with the church that has kind of, you know, put them off with how to apply some of what the scripture says when something's unhealthy or traumatizing, or, you know, that doesn't effectively help them to have an environment that they can trust that they're being grown well in. So, yeah.
Well, this has been such a helpful discussion. I feel like I'm just getting a lot of ideas in my head and just stuff I want to dig down deeper in. And I hope that, I'll just look at the camera for a second. I hope this is helpful for whoever is watching this, if you're online or if you're just listening to this on your podcast app. I hope this is helpful for you as well. Feel free to drop a comment or a review. Let us know how God's speaking to you through this. And one thing I like to do as we close is, if you could just even maybe look at that camera for a second and just minister or share a level up word. We got a variety of different people who listen to this, people that are just in the marketplace, artists, rappers, business leaders, realtors, and then pastors, church planners. So it's going to be a diverse group. But if you could just say, in this year, here's one way that I think you could level up, or here's an area I would encourage you to level up as a closing thought.
Yeah, I think one way that the church, which camera I'm looking at, this one or this one?
Yep.
This one, okay.
Yep, let's go.
One way that I believe the church needs to level up individually and corporately. I'll be talking a little bit about that tonight. I'm kind of, after this podcast, I'm got to talk to him about what I may have to switch. But anyway.
Yeah.
The church needs to be rebranded and represented. Not changed. Rebrand, I don't mean, you know, the product is still the same. But I do think the way in which we've been communicated, and which part is our fault and others' fault, we need to do the hard work of walking in the fruit of the Spirit, and God giving us the grace in every sphere that we're in to reflect God's glory and the character of Christ. So that means if you're a business person, reflecting it in how you do business. If you're an artist, reflecting it in how you do your art, whether you do explicit art that lifts up Christ or implicit art that has biblical principles, but it's just general art, or entrepreneurialism, whatever it is that you're in, leadership, church leadership, that you're reflecting God's glory in it and knowledgeably knowing exactly how we as believers are being perceived. That means you may have to do a survey. How do you perceive Christians? And what are some ways that we can do to help people? And every year we usually ask our neighborhood, we ask them, what are the 3 greatest needs in the community? What are the top influences? And what can our church do to impact those top needs in the community? And from that flows a strategic plan that helps us with our outreach. So I don't know what sphere you're in that you can ask your unsaved, unbelieving, and non-believing or non-Christian, and a deconverted folk, or not just deconverted folk, de-church folk, ways in which you can lovingly interact with them and applying it to where God uses it to draw them closer to Him. God bless you, man.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this podcast. It's an honor to have you in Vegas.
Glad to
honor
be
to
here.
have you at Walk Church, and such a good word here today. The word that I'm leaving with for sure is the word strategic. If you're going to level up in your leadership, you got to be strategic with it. And I'm grateful that you're being strategic on this podcast. So look forward to catching you again. Every episode is designed to help you level up in your leadership, just one step at a time. So let's keep going. Talk to you soon. Peace.